So, Mary, I was reading some verses the other day from Isaiah, and I couldn't help but think of some of the conversations that you and I have had recently about community events and just things that have been going on in our lives. And um, I know that we have both struggled with what we believe and who we believe and what that looks like for our lives. And so I found that these verses gave me a sense of comfort, not necessarily because they're talking about suffering, because initially that didn't sound very comforting to me, but just the thought that as I have suffered and struggled in my life, that here in these verses, it talks about someone else who has done the same. In fact, I can't help but believe that the connection between the person that I read about in these verses and what I saw in the life and the death and the resurrection of Jesus are connected. That Jesus is the one that's being referred to here, that Jesus is the suffering servant. And I guess the reason that has such strong meaning for me is because of where I have been in my own life. And that here is one who was despised and rejected by others, a man of suffering and acquainted with infirmity. Surely he has borne our infirmities and carried our diseases. Crushed for our iniquities, upon him was the punishment that made us whole, and by his bruises we are healed. He was oppressed, he was afflicted, but he didn't open his mouth. The righteous one, my servant, shall make many righteous, and he shall bear their iniquities. And so over and over it talks about how there's this one that is going to bear the weight, that's going to take on the struggle, that's going to assume the suffering, and not just take on like that's some sort of arbitrary thing, but to take it on for me, to take it on for you. See, my servant shall prosper, he shall be exalted and lifted up, and shall be very high. Just like that staff, that rod that Moses had, that when people looked up as he led the Israelites out of Egypt, and when they looked up and saw the head of the serpent, they weren't bitten anymore. They were free from that. And I guess in my own thoughts and in my own heart and in my own weariness of the challenges of this day and of this time, I see one that I've been waiting for a long time. And my hope and my prayer is that you see him too.